preview.
Hello, folks, and once again, welcome back to the breakdown. It's myself, Mark Riley, and Ben Geary, where you look back at a pretty important result for Munster. Maybe not a classical of games, but they got the result against Cast at home, Thomond Park, on Saturday night. We'll look back at that result. We will also look back at the walkover involving Leinster and Montpellier and the implications that might have on Leinster's chances of winning the trophy. We'll also look back at rugby throughout the year as a whole, our best players, our best teams, best coaches, and everything else involved. We would also wish everyone a happy Christmas. And Ben, how are we? How are we feeling?
Not too bad, Mark. How are you getting on?
Good. I'm good. A bit discouraged by this. We had the new guidelines and
of course, yeah.
Restrictions, but yeah, I don't know. We're not talking about that because everyone else is. So we're going to cover the rugby and we're going to cover Munster and Cast, which in the first place, I was actually surprised it went ahead. Then it did, and it was kind of a strange game.
It was a bit weird, yeah. It was a bit kind of, I don't know. It was almost like particularly the ending where kind of.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Cast had a good thing going, and they just kick it out, and
the ending kind of summed up the game. It was just weird. Yeah. It was just a weird night. Strange night. Not a classic match. Not the best performance from Munster, but at the end of the day, get the result. And with everything, like we stated in previous episodes on the breakdown, just look with the hectic weeks that have been in the last 2 weeks. You just have to get the results. That's all you can do. So
yeah.
So 1913. Yeah, we'll start off there actually, because I think it's the standout. Why were Cast so willing to accept the losing bonus point?
I don't know. I think that's probably the €1 million question in many ways at this stage. But to be honest, I'm not sure. Like, I definitely do think it was tough going to Thomond Park, especially after losing to Harlequins at home and losing a what was quite a lengthy unbeaten record at home for Cast. And then to turn around and go to Thomond Park, in a cold night in Limerick is less than ideal in many ways. But
absolutely, it's equivalent of Anfield on a Champions League night, really.
Yeah, like exactly, more or less.
Not where you want to go. Like, it's just the last place you want to be.
Absolutely, and like Connacht were kind of in the same thing going to Welford Road in Leicester. Yeah. But sometimes there's just some locations in every sport, like you said, is just they're really hard places to go to and win. Like maybe if you're Toulouse or if you're, I don't know, maybe La Rochelle, it's a little bit easier. But for a team like Cast, who are, I think they're number 6 in the top 14 table, middling, it's really hard to kind of dig deep and produce a result like that. And yeah,
I think the way of looking at it is, if you had offered them before the game, so if before the game, for the match commenced, you would say Cast would take a losing bonus point. So when you look at it from that view, you're kind of like completely understandable, and I get where they're coming from. It's just kind of the way the game unfolded, because I thought they got back into it towards the end, and they were pushing Munster. But it's almost like, look, we came here to do a job, and we've done the job almost. That's the sense I got from it. So
yeah. It was a bit kind of underwhelming, I'd say, even with all that was going on around France, with other French teams not being able to play at all, and like the game was kind of hanging on by a thread in the days and even hours probably leading up to it anyway. So in order to kind of maintain a regimented kind of preparation or training routine in the days or weeks prior was probably a bit tricky, or days prior, I should say. But and then by the time when the game actually does go ahead, it must have been so tough to stay motivated and stay,
that's the thing, though. Like, it's as much as it is a physical game, it's mental, and like you'd be mentally fatigued. Like, they're surely drained, not knowing what lack of preparation, not knowing who is able to play, not knowing if they are able to play, if they are fit enough after the lack of preparation. The whole thing is just probably the only time in my life where I actually have sympathy for some professional sports players. It's the only time where I'm just like, it must be extremely tough in any walk of sport. Like in any sport, it's not an easy time. So
exactly.
Yeah, it's been difficult for everyone, and I suppose that's why you can't give out to Munster for getting the job done and just getting the result. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And like, even looking back at it, like Munster were probably a bit experimental in many ways. They didn't really and not saying that they didn't give Cass the respect they deserve, but like there was a lot of things that were I don't know, how do you say, Munster were trying to play a game that they could play, not the game they wanted to play in many ways. Like Patrick Campbell was still playing fullback, even though he's a great prospect. It must only mean that the likes of Mike Healey and Matt Gallagher are still not available.
Yeah, so just talking about basically, the implications of this for Cast and Munster. I mean, the group is kind of taking shape now, so we'll actually just take a break from the match for like 2 seconds. Who you comfortable Munster are going to top
it? Comfortable. I think they will, but I wouldn't say I was comfortable that they would. Like it's still the Champions Cup, you know. Like as soon as you think that you have it figured out, like, you know, there's someone who's working on their own game could come along and topple you. Like Leinster kind of fell victim to that to La Rochelle last year, I think, a little bit. Maybe went into that semi-final a bit too comfortable, or a little bit too confident. But then again, like, you know, anything can happen. I think Munster are definitely good enough to do it, but like whether saying they will is a different kind of kettle of fish. But why? What do you think?
I would say I think because I mean, again, this probably does sound like I'm being comfortable, but this is just how I see it. Is that I don't think Munster have really gotten into. I think they've fully got going yet.
Yeah,
and I think
definitely.
I think Harlequins now is. Yeah, I think that's a big one in terms of a statement to be made. I think Munster can lay down a marker of how they are actually a serious contender in this competition. So yeah, I would feel comfortable. I feel they can tap it. Yeah, absolutely. So I suppose on the performance, I mean, there's not a whole lot of highlights, but I mean, what we can look at is firstly Ben Healey.
Yeah, something else, isn't he?
Statement made, I would say. And again, of course, like we've discussed this numerous times. Yeah, teams have been depleted and it's odd times, whatever. All you can do is play your opposition, and he's done that supremely well. And his place kicking is up there, like
phenomenal, something else. Like, and I've written a lot of pieces about Ben, and I've often mentioned him in many ways. Like even talking about his within the context of Ireland and talking about who his kind of competition is, whether it's Ross Byrne or Harry Byrne or Jack Carthy.
Yeah.
Like looking at the shift Johnny Sexton has put in over the past, 10, 13, 14 years maybe, in a green jersey, like a lot of the injuries and kind of knocks and niggles that he got were from, teams targeting an out half. But I feel like a lot of those issues are kind of, I wouldn't say obsolete when it comes to Ben Healey, but he's a much bigger, stronger out half than anyone else who's also going for that Irish 10 jersey,
And fresher.
And he's fresher, absolutely. Like I think he's the guts of 6'4". Like he could get up to, he's probably not quite 100 kilos, but he's maybe closer around to high 80s, 90s, mid 90s. And he's a big, strong guy. And I know that's not everything. Of course, you need to be a good footballer as well in many ways, but my God, for a guy who can kick that powerfully both off the tee and out of hand, he can really put teams in some amazing positions in regards to territory, in regards to just getting up the pitch so much quicker than running the ball.
I think what's impressed me with him is maybe the way he's taken to it so easily.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
There hasn't been too many teething problems with him. It's very rare you see someone of his age come into a side like Munster. I mean, and this is of absolute no disrespect. This is fact in my opinion. So a club or a province like Munster that have the historical riches that they do, it's a lot of weight on the shoulder. Whereas if he was stepping into, again, no disrespect, we actually bigged up Connacht last week when we were talking about them, made massive strides, and they are brilliant. And Jack Carty is an outstanding 10. But if you had someone of Ben Healey's age coming through as a 10, there's no way the expectancy level is on par. There's just no chance. And for me, for what he's done for Munster so far, has just he's brushed aside all of it. Look, if I was to show you his last, let's say, we'll just say his last 10 performances in a red jersey. And I showed it to a person who was a massive, massive rugby fan. However, they've never watched Munster, which obviously would be impossible. But let's just say,
hypothetically,
yes, let's just say I showed them 10 games and they would be like, right, I'd be like, guess the age. They'd probably go 25, 26. He's been doing this a while.
Yeah.
He's just so, it's the consistency for me, which is the polar opposite to Carberry, as we've mentioned many a times. Carberry arguably has more talent. There's more match-winning ability maybe in his arsenal. However, this is the difference, and this is what you have to choose with your style of play. I mean, Ben Healey he's going to knock the ball over. He's going to get you your points, and he's very, very, the error risk is quite minimal.
Yeah.
And I think for his age, that's quite an attribute to have. Like,
I think something interesting, like I know what you're saying about his age, like he's only 22, but like age is one thing, but when you think of the amount of hours that he's put into his game from the age of 13 is just outrageous. Like, and I was familiar with Ben when he was playing in the school ranks with Glenstal, and like when he was in fourth year, he was starting his for his senior cup team when he was in fourth year. Like probably not the biggest guy in the pitch. But he pushed
starting 10, which is
starting out half, as a fourth year.
It's another level again.
Which is, something different completely. Like he pushed the then out half Jack Stafford, who's now playing for Harlequins, he's now a scrum half, but at the time Jack Stafford was an out and out, fly half, but he ended up pushing him to 12. And for like a TY student to do that a guy who's already hit incredible heights with Harlequins now, who Stafford did his time in the Munster Academy and then impressed on trial with Harlequins and ended up getting a contract. But like for that guy to just walk onto a team that was already very talented in probably the most difficult position to make and get all the responsibility of kicking out a hand and kicking out a tee, at that age I think is probably unheard of. And if not, there's very few examples of other players doing it. So
that's actually a very good point, because that ties into what we were mentioning. So when I talk about pressure, he's been in the pressure cooker since TY.
Yeah.
That's the school's game. If you're that young going into a position like that for a senior cup, you have pressure. So it's definitely paid. Like it's definitely, what's the word? I suppose it's attributed to him being as comfortable as he is on the pitch. So all in all, the game. So who was your standout player? If it's kind of, to be honest, it was hard to kind of pick. Not saying it was bad, but it was just there was no real standouts. But do you have one? And if so, why?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Of course, I would say Ben Healey, because he kept Munster in it in many ways. I think Jack O'Donoghue played very, very well. Just from a standpoint, like I know he was the only man to get a try, but like his work rate off the ball and on the ball as well was just incredible. Like he was everywhere. But then again, at the same time, I saw a lot of good things from Conor Murray as well. I thought he was playing faster. I thought he was a bit more lively, a bit more aware than usual, which is probably something he's been working on over the past couple of months.
100%. I would think so.
Yeah, I think we've been seeing the fruits of that hard work that he's been putting in behind the scenes. Not all of it, but a little bit of it yesterday. We're kind of seeing the trajectory he's going in now, So all good things.
And just like, I suppose cast. Look, we just stated there earlier. I suppose they would think they did a job. They got the losing bonus points. Munster get the win. Are both teams happy leaving Thomond Park? You'd argue they are.
I'd argue there. Like Castro probably very upset. Like they really put it up to Harlequins. They only barely lost out to Harlequins the week prior. Come to Thomond Park is a tough job, but at the same time, Munster aren't exactly hitting the ground running at the moment. With all the kind of confusion around Van Gran, and not confusion, but they're not exactly settled, I'd say. Like when your head coach has already turned around and said that he's moving to a true rugby city in Bath, I mean, it might motivate you, but it also might kind of take you back a couple of steps in many ways, because you're kind of thinking, well, Jesus,
Exactly. That's what we were talking about last week on the breakdown. If anyone missed it, you can go back. It's on YouTube and on Facebook, and you can catch it, because I thought we had a good conversation about it, and I thought it was intriguing to see your angle compared to mine, whereas we kind of differed in terms of, I was more in the pessimistic camp of, yeah, I think this might affect us. And then you, on the day, of course, I don't know if you still feel the same, you felt it might galvanize us, but it could go, I don't know, we just don't know. We don't know. And speaking of which, actually, we'll just jump into that really quickly. I was looking at favorites, odds on who's going to replace him. And of course, Raj is the first man on the list. So, we were saying, no, wait a few years down the line. But I don't know. Can you see it happening?
I don't know if the time's right.
Neither do I, but weirder things have happened. I mean,
that's for true. Yeah,
let's just say if La Rochelle, this is where it's funny again, because if La Rochelle don't do as well as they did, well, okay, realistically, it's very hard to do as well as they did last year. That goes without saying. But if they don't really do what Raj expects them to do, it would split me 50-50 as to whether he would see it as unfinished business, and that he was like, no, I'm not going over to Thomond Park, taking over a team yet until I've completed the process here. However, if it doesn't go well, you could look at the side of, well, I've done my best. We've gotten to a final. No one expected me to do that. Let's go. So, I don't know. It's exciting. It actually excites me. And I saw we were talking about Felix Jones. He is second on the list.
Really?
What I'm reading here, and there's some strange ones though. Leo Cullen is amongst the names, and I just no,
I don't see that happening.
Wouldn't see that happening.
I'd say they're trying to take people's money with that one, I think, to be honest. To be honest, but even going back to Raj, I just don't know. And I of course, I don't know him personally, but he really strikes me as the kind of guy he's a businessman now more than he is a player. I feel like Ronan O'Gara, the player, would absolutely go back to Munster and he'd jump at the opportunity. But I think now that he's a coach, it's not a question of when he'll go back to Munster. It's a question of if, maybe. Of course, not to speak for him or make him sound shallow in any way, sense of form, but the paycheck has to be right too. He's not going to go back for.
He's cerebral.
There's a lot of great teams out there who he would probably also love to coach, because he's a rugby fan just as much as he's a Munster fan. It's really not the kind of thing where Munster have a vacancy and probably the most promising coach in European, if not world rugby at the moment. Just because he has a personal tie to it doesn't mean he's just going to jump at it. He just happens to be Ronan O'Gara. But I don't know. It's a tricky one. I do think he will. Personally, I do think he will go back to Munster at some stage, but I don't think the time is right. I don't think it's. I think he needs to win a couple of trophies with La Rochelle first.
Yeah, and I was going to say sensitive, which is completely the wrong word. It's going to be taken in the wrong, kind of, I suppose, context. But he's just passionate. He wears his heart in his sleeve, and you can tell how many past things that happened in sports. He's talked about the Lions test in 2009 when he makes that kick, and that still lives with him to this day. So I do get the feeling that if he did go to Munster and let's just say things didn't go well, that would eat him alive. And I don't know if that's exactly what he'd want. I think I'm kind of in your camp. I think it's, do you know what, I keep making these I suppose analogies into football, but to me it's almost like a similar thing with Steven Gerrard. It's almost like he's putting in the body of work so that when he does take over, I'm not taking this because I used to play for you and I'm a legend. I've earned this. Yes. And I'm going to show you that I am worth this. So that's what I think it is. So
absolutely, I'd agree with you.
Maybe too soon to be thinking he'll take the job, but would I say no? No, I take him. I take him in a heartbeat. I would just love. What more would you want than popcorn and watching Leo Cullen and Ronan O'Gara face off? What more would you want in life? Very little.
And but I do think Munster, obviously Ronan O'Gara is a completely different kind of example, but Munster are guilty of kind of, how would you say, like they kind of seem to place reputation above form or above ability in many ways. Like you saw that with, I hate to say it, Axel Foley, not to speak ill of him now, but was he the right man for the job at the time? Probably not. Like, did he do a lot for the morale and for the identity of the club? Absolutely. But he could have done that.
But
sorry, go on.
No, but you're spot on. But that's what, like, absolute amazing human being, icon, legend, great man. But like we say, it is a business, and it is like CVs do matter. And
exactly.
That's a category you do not want to fall into, and it's one Munster need to be wary of, is jobs for the boys.
Yes, exactly.
Can't be doing it. We can't afford to do it. And where we are as well, we need to make up ground on Leinster. We just do. So I would be fully in agreement with you in that department.
And I think like Leinster identified that kind of thing a lot earlier maybe than we did. I know Leo Cullen is in the position he's in now, but like from an on-pitch standpoint, it's the man in the driver's seat is Stuart Lancaster. It's not Leo Cullen. And it's with the complexity of professional level rugby at that level, whether it's football or whether it's rugby or whether it's whatever, it's all the same. Like you're trying to find the right pieces rather than the closest ones, or the easiest ones that fit in. You want to get the ones that'll be the most productive.
1000%. And not every scenario is the same. I mean, situations are situational, Ben. So, like, I mean, Munster, Leinster. I mean, Leo Cullen was under Joe Schmidt. He worked with these people, so he knows there was a formula set, and he's following it, and he's following that structure. Munster don't have one at the moment, and even when we were trying to build towards one, he's gone. So Van Gran is leaving now. So now we need to go back to basics, open up the book, and write chapter 1 again. So you don't want someone coming in learning on the job. And with all respect, we need someone to come in now. Like, okay, whether it's long term, I don't know. Whether it's short term, I don't know. But someone to come in and get us back at least challenging for a Heineken Cup again in some sort of fashion. Because we all hope that Munster can do it, and you can't write off Munster and Munster's ability to show up in big games. But do you expect Munster to win a Heineken Cup or really, take out the big boys? No, not necessarily. Not at this point in time. Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see. There's not too many, like, outside of Ron O'Gara. That's the problem, though. There's not too many names that fly out at you.
No, and I'm sure there's, and like I heard Jerry Thornley talk about this in the radio a couple of days ago, but
he's the most enthusiastic man in the world.
Oh, he's brilliant. He always says things, and I'm like, God, why didn't I think of that?
He's absolutely he is spot on with most of the things he says.
Yeah. But he was brainstorming about it, and he was kind of saying, when Michael Cheika came to Leinster those years ago, like, nobody really knew who he was. Like, when Rassie Erasmus came to Munster, nobody really knew who he was, and now they're, Michael Cheika's. He had probably the best stint of his career in 2015 when he was the Australian head coach, losing in the World Cup final, but still reaching that final alone was a huge feat. But like, whereas those years prior, nobody really knew who the guy was. So there probably is names who are being considered by Munster that we haven't even thought of or maybe even heard of. It could be a great thing, or it also could be. They could just be a placeholder for someone else. You don't really want someone coming in and signing a 3-year contract for when Ron O'Gara is ready, or when Paul O'Connell is ready, or Felix is ready, So
I don't. Yeah, stop kicking the can and just let's actually get something organized so we can challenge. Exactly. Yeah. I suppose. Okay, so that's as much as you can say on Munster's performance and their outlook on a new manager. Leinster Montpellier. So, do you think Leinster are entitled to feel aggrieved?
I actually was at the time before. When was it? Before I heard, I don't know who it was that said it now, but I only saw the situation from the surface, and I only realized that, like, Leinster had a team named, they were ready to go, and then the game was called off, and Montpellier wrongly got the 5 points on the table. But, like, learning about it yesterday or today, and kind of really what happened. It's going to be tough for Leinster to appeal this one, because like Montpellier had one positive case. I think was it the week, like the Monday before the game.
Yep.
Which is a good like 5-6 days in advance. And then they recorded no positive cases since. But Leinster were recording positive cases, or identifying positive cases, I should say, the Monday, the Tuesday, the Wednesday, the Thursday. So by the time the team was named, there could have been positive cases within that team that was set to travel to Montpellier, but they just wouldn't have been identified in time. So there was more of a risk there. Now, needless to mention, we're not doctors. Like it's I'm if anything, I'm paraphrasing from where else I heard it. I believe it was probably off the ball as well, to be honest, because News Talk is always on. But with that in mind, even though Leinster had the team named, Montpellier probably had less of a risk, or probably managed their squad a little bit better. So, and it seems tough, it seems harsh, but at the same time, I can now see why it was a 28-0 win walkover, I should say, to Montpellier more than it was to Leinster.
Yeah.
And I know like Leinster will feel annoyed about it, but then again, when you think back to this time last year when Toulon were in Dublin the night before the game, ready to play against Leinster, and then they were told, sorry, you have to go home. And they no positive cases, and like nobody kicked or screamed. It was almost like, that was the deal. Or it was a quarterfinal, I should say. But yeah, to be honest, I did feel bad for them, but now that I know what I know, maybe it's fair.
Yeah, well, I kind of think it is. I mean, I think everyone knows the kind of the requirements now, with the predicament that we're in. So yeah, okay. Certain teams are going to feel harshly done by, and it's just the way it is. But with the amount of tests and the round of tests and testing that they're doing, I don't know. Like Leinster know, and they knew what was required. So now that it hasn't gone their way, I feel like slightly throwing toys out the pram. Whereas other teams will just take their medicine and be like, look, that's a scenario we're in.
Yeah.
But again, as you stated, do I know the ins and outs? And have I researched in depth every scenario that has happened in the build up to that game? No, of course not. But yeah, I'm like you. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's one you got to take. Take it with a glass of water, move on to next week, and let's go. That's all you can do. So yeah, implications. What does that do to Leinster now? Because I previously said that they were my favourites, which is quite rare. I don't think many people had them as favourites, but they were mine. Where does that leave them
now? Where it leaves them, it'll probably be tough. Like they're probably not going to get a home quarterfinal. But then again, who they're going to be playing in the quarterfinal is tricky, because if I'm not mistaken, that game, that Leinster Montpellier game, was the only game, or maybe there was one other game that was a walkover, whereas other games were postponed.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder what the difference is, or what sets those two teams apart. Personally, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it does complicate things. Like even when you think of those games that are postponed, I'm not sure some of them probably are in Leinster's group, but like you just wonder, like, when are they going to play these games? If they want to play them in January, they'll have to get permission from both the URC and the top 14 to play them during the weekends, and then that kind of kicks the can down the road for those other, the Premiership as well, like the Premiership, top 14, URC. They'll all probably have to finish later as well.
100%.
Like they won't play the games in the middle of the week. They won't.
No, and the recovery time for players, like, I mean, you can't.
Exactly, yeah.
What I think will happen is going to be a repeat of last year. I think they're going to have to scrap and possibly the next round of the groups.
I think so, yeah.
I think it's the only scenario I can think of that appeals to everyone. Like that will ease the transition going into the group stages and getting this competition like done. That's the only way I can see it. So I can see going in straight into competition and just I don't know how you would do it. I suppose you pick names out of a hat. That's that's where we're at.
Yeah.
So
it's a bit
you
like
you can't pull a rabbit out of the hat in this scenario. So might as well be names, and you might as well get the competition done. Joe,
Exactly, yeah. Because they got to keep it going, you know, like they can't just...
Can't stop. That's what the Premier League basically announced today. For any soccer fans, the Premier League basically rejected a proposal made by a few clubs to postpone games. Now, there's 2 or 3 reasons to this, but the main reason that they gave, which probably isn't true, it's probably money is the main reason, but the main reason they gave was that they can't have a repeat of congestion, because if this happens again, it has a domino effect on the other leagues. And then if the other leagues are involving Europe, right? So say if you have European competitions, then you have teams traveling, and with this new variant, if you're congesting fixtures that are abroad, this will get worse. And there's no doubt that it will get worse. So it's not going to be good anyway. We're not in an ideal situation.
Yeah.
So try play the games, have as many players vaccinated, tested as possible. If you cannot fill a team, fill them with underage players or academy players, whatever it is, and you have to move on. And it's not ideal for anyone. But I just think if we don't accept that that's the way it is, it's going to get worse. And that's, simple as really. So I just think that's the only way you can bypass a situation like this.
And it's kind of tough to see, whether it's both football, rugby, or what have you, it's kind of tough to see them go backwards as well a little bit.
Oh,
it's still in this kind of same situation a year later. But then again, like the Champions Cup, they can learn a lot from the Premier League, and they can learn a lot from Champions League, and there's no shame in just copying what they're doing as well. And I know there'll be differences. It won't exactly be an exact, they won't copy it exactly, but it would be good to see some kind of form of them kind of synchronizing their plans. But yeah, it's just tough. Like even last year, even though Toulouse were very dominant, I did kind of think that there was a bit of an asterisk beside that year, because you know it's just not the same. You know, there's games postponed. You're playing different. You're not exactly. You could make the argument that you're not exactly playing the strongest form of your opponent. If there is positive cases, or there is, even things like an empty stadium, like that definitely comes into
count 100%.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you kind of wonder, like even Limerick winning the All Ireland in 2020 in an empty Croke Park was it late November, December?
Very, very careful what you say here, Ben.
I know, and I will. I'm treading lightly. Don't get me wrong. I'm treading lightly. But the point I'm trying to make is that, like, if someone comes out and says, "Well, listen, it's an All Ireland, but it's an All Ireland that we'll remember for all the wrong reasons," it's kind of hard to argue with that. And I think there's a bit of that not creeping into, it's absolutely in the URC now, especially with Munster spending 2 weeks without a game, half the squad in Limerick, half the squad in South Africa. Like you said, the Premier League, the Champions League, there's a bit of it everywhere. So, I mean, I don't know how they're going to proceed, but I'm glad we're not the ones making the decisions at the same time, because it seems like an absolute nightmare.
I don't know if they want to pay me enough. I'll make a few. Don't mind. I don't know. So I don't know what I do.
I don't know what you'd say.
We'll glance over the 2 other Irish provinces, Ulster and Connacht. Connacht again. They lost, but they lost with a losing bonus point, and they put a serious performance. Arguably the biggest test to Leicester at home since, what was the game I watched? And I think it was Saracens. Was it Saracens? I think it was Saracens.
Saracens, I think it was.
The last team, that put it up to Leicester at home, because Leicester have been absolutely flying it. Leicester dominated in a lot of areas, but Connacht again showed resilience to hang in there and just keep tipping away, and let them know, no, we're still here. You won't get rid of us that easy. And to get a losing bonus point, I think they take that with 2 hands. And I thought they were impressive again. And once again, how many times do I need to sing the praises of Jack Carty? I thought he was phenomenal.
Yeah, like I saw that game as well. I watched this. I watched it in Galway. Imagine I was out visiting a few friends, and in a pub full of avid Connacht fans. Like it was very interesting. It kind of reminded me of the old times of watching Champions Cup games in pubs. Watching Munster Champion Cup games in pubs, because it was up, just the volume was through the roof. People were oohing and ahhing at every decision. But yeah, like, I mean, even looking at the statistics, you kind of wonder how Connacht didn't kind of have a tighter grip on the game. Like even looking at them here, like Connacht made 402 meters, while Leicester only made 299. The possession was 50-50 exactly.
Yeah.
Connacht had more territory. They had 56%. Leicester only had 44. Like carries, Connacht had 103. Leicester had 56. Like clean breaks. Sorry, go on.
It would just say again, it would go back to clinical nature. Leicester were just ruthless.
Leicester were ruthless, and like Leicester made way more tackles, 127.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah.
Say it again.
There was a few defensive mistakes from Connacht. I think was it the second try? I think it could have been the second try. I'm trying to remember now, but it was just. I think so. I think the defense, but Connacht's defense just squeezed completely, went way, way, way too narrow, and it was just. It seemed so easy, and it's just little moments like that where they will obviously learn, but that was the difference in the game. Do you know? So. Yeah, I don't know. It's a funny one, like you're saying there. I mean, Connacht could have easily came away with more, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Leicester just they're quite good at the moment. They're actually
Leicester,
a team. Wouldn't
Leicester
fancy facing them. Yeah.
No, me neither. Like I know they kind of had a few kind of slow years there, maybe last year, the year before, or what have you, but like looking back at the history, like they're really up there with the New England Patriots and the Manchester United in many ways, and you know, like it's they're always there. And if they lose kind of momentum in regards to form and stuff, it's not long before they get it back, you know. So listen, fair play to them. But if I was Jack Carty, I'd be annoyed I didn't win that game, to be honest. Because Connacht were working a lot harder. Like they had 100% penalties, 100% in conversions, a drop goal.
Jack is probably like, what more could I have actually physically done?
I know. I did find, like, particularly towards the last quarter of the game, like when especially Finlay Bean went off with a yellow card and Leicester scored 2 tries, because it must be so hard to defend with one less player, particularly in a Champions Cup game. URC, you could probably get away with it, but especially against an opposition like Leicester, like they're just going to pull you apart. They're pulling you apart anyway. So when you've one less guy in the pitch, it's just, I mean, it's so much more significant of a loss. But I like Jack Carty, like his kicking was good out of hand and stuff, but I did feel like he did play into Leicester's hands a little bit.
Fill me in.
And like not just him, but like I just noticed a few times where he was kicking like a little bit too close to the halfway line, and he was kicking it to a Leicester fullback, or was it maybe Ben Youngs who had dropped or what have you, but he was playing it back into their hands a little bit. Like they spent a lot of time in their 22 in the last 20 minutes. In their own 22. Like, you know, whereas I feel like other out halves like Johnny Sexton in his glory days, or like Ron O'Gara in his glory days, wouldn't really have let their team be in that situation. And if they did, you know, it would be chalked up as kind of a little bit less revered. Yeah, it'd be a lot less of a revered loss than Connacht's lost against Leicester the last day. So, like, fair play to them. They still did very well to perform as well as they did. But if it was me, if I was wearing a green jersey that night, I'd be fuming, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's weird. It is a weird one, because that's the thing. It's throughout the game, you would have said, they would be fuming that maybe they're not pressing on and maybe taking a lead.
Yeah.
But with the way that the last 10 minutes went, and Jack Carty salvaging that bonus, but you can't not take it, if that makes sense. I mean,
you would.
Like, okay, so again, it goes back beforehand. If you went to Welford Road and you said, look, we get a Ludus bonus point, would you take it? Both ends, thank you very much. So, yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from, and you can 100% make an argument that Connacht will feel slightly aggrieved they didn't get more. But they won't. I won't feel like they'll be down on themselves or disappointed. I think they'll be proud of their display, and I think they take the point.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree with you. And I don't think, like, there's no signs that show they're going in the wrong direction either, you know? Like,
absolutely.
Next time they go to Welford Road, they're probably going to be like, do you know what? Or next time they play Leicester, was that their first time playing Leicester this year? It was. Like when they play Leicester in the second leg, if it goes ahead, like I'm sure they would have done their research and they'll be saying, listen, we're not letting another one slip away against these guys, particularly at home.
100%.
So,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, to be honest, great weekend for Irish provinces except Leinster, because they were all like, I think we've shown the talent and ability. It used to be like I think everyone knows this unanimously. It used to be Leinster, Munster are representing Ireland effectively, and Ulster over the last few years have obviously gotten way stronger and are up there with arguably us now at this stage. And now Connacht have joined the party. They've opened the door. They've 2 Captain Morgans in their hand. They've Mixer. They're ready. Like they've come in ready to party. Like, and they've fully joined us. And now it's just nice to see all 4 provinces firing. So yeah, I don't know. I think Connacht are only going to go from strength to strength, considering now they don't go back to becoming the boys who you can pick off for Munster and Leinster. As long as they can keep players, we discussed this last week. I think they have every reason to, just develop, constantly evolve. Ulster, another great performance and another great win. Like you even mentioned it last week. You were like, they can't be written off.
Oh no.
Yeah, like, and I actually didn't. I wasn't too inclined to agree with you, but now I'm like, it was actually funny. I was like, I was nearly going to text you after watching it. I was like, oh, well, I text Ben saying, yeah, he might actually be right here with Ulster. And I was like, no. I was like, can't be listening to that. Like, but you were. They are a dangerous team. They're a dangerous team. And a question I have for you just before we get into the game, because this is one that kind of interests me. So you mentioned Cooney before.
Yeah.
And his just consistency, his ability. Like I was talking just 30 seconds previously about Connacht. Can they hold on to him?
That's a good question. I haven't thought about it, to be honest. I'd say they would. Like, I think he's one of very few players. He's played for both Leinster and Connacht, if I'm not mistaken. You know, he's been around the block. I think, is he 35 or 6 at this stage, if even? Of course, he's still. I know age isn't really a factor. I think as the years go on.
That's what I'm kind of leaning towards. I'm just saying, could you see him going abroad for a swan song year? Or...
yeah. Now that I think about it, I could. To be honest, I could. To be honest, like he's not really in the anymore. Anyway, he's not really in the consideration for a green jersey at the moment.
Oh yeah.
Just because, not that he's not good enough, but I just think there must be something up, you know, like he's been playing so good for so long and his stints playing for Ireland have been few and far between.
I think it's purely age.
To do with age?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't think so. Because Gibson Park's no spring chicken either, to the best of my knowledge.
He's 31. So you'd wonder.
Well, he's young, like, but he's still got a good few years of good rugby ahead of him, but he's I don't know, it's weird. I think there must be something up. He mustn't be the best guy to have in a changing room, and I don't mean to be just assuming this either, but like that is a factor as well, you know. For a guy that good to not really be considered for Ireland, or to only have kind of a sparse involvement with Ireland,
there's more to the eye.
There's more to the eye there, I'd say. You know, listen, and Nathan Doak, I think, is so good. Like he's showing some really bright signs. So even if Cooney does go, I mean, listen,
that's my point. So that's why I thought I'd ask you that question. That's why, because I think Doak they're going to build around him, and they are building around him effectively. So I just wonder where's the space for Cooney, because I think he does have another year of being, maybe 2-3 years actually, of being a really, really solid scrum half starter for a solid team. So I don't know. I just thought I'd throw it at you. So talking about the performance, another place where it might have been harder a few years ago, and I think everyone remembers those romantic clashes between Leinster and Northampton, where they just seemed to always butt heads at some stage in the season, and they were brilliant games. Northampton have fallen slightly off since then.
They have.
Still doesn't make it easy to go and get a result in the fashion that they did. So I think Ulster could be players in this competition, like big time.
Ulster absolutely could be. I was a bit worried to see Ian Henderson stumble off the pitch or limp off the pitch.
Yeah.
Considering he's a guy that they just got back. He's their captain. He's plan A when it comes to lineouts. You know, it's losing him is a big chunk of the puzzle gone. But then again, you know, like who do you get in instead of him?
One of those. I think there's few people who are irreplaceable in terms of how important they are to a team, and he's probably one of them. He's in that category.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Particularly at club level, like I mean, at Irish level, it's different. It's not as clean cut. You know, there's lots of great second rows. Ian Henderson also went through a bit of a bad patch of getting red cards and giving away a lot of penalties and stuff. So he wasn't always Ireland's first choice, but I think with Ulster, it really is a different story. You know, he's kind of the big pillar holding the whole thing up. You know, so but yeah, listen, they have a wealth of talent though. You know,
that's the thing though. They really do, and it's. I think they've always had a good. So if this makes any sense. So for a few years they went through a team of having a pretty solid 15, and having a team that was very in the present. But if they didn't win that year, like through the PNR era and all that, like it felt that was it. Whereas now it feels like they're building. So they're kind of winning in both areas. I think that they can make a statement at the moment. But they're kind of letting other teams around Europe know that not only will make a statement at the moment, we're building to make a massive statement in a few years.
Yeah, definitely. And I think they're probably one of the few teams as well that are making a big impact, both at European level and domestically, I suppose, for lack of a better term. But like in the URC, they're not unbeaten. They lost to Ospreys, but like with wins over Leinster and wins over like who else did they beat? But like they're one of the front runners anyway in the URC this year as well too. So you know, there's a lot of the consistency doesn't really seem to be an issue for them as much anymore. They seem to have kind of cracked the code a little bit, but like they've so much talent under an age, you know, like James Hume is only 23. I thought he was a lot older because he plays like you were talking about earlier about Ben Healey. Like he just looks like he's been playing the game for years. Like even the likes of Ethan McElroy, the likes of Nathan Doak, like we mentioned, you know, there's enough for a Champions Cup win and then some, you know. So listen, we'll see. Let's just see if they can keep their foot in the pedal.
Yeah, we certainly will. Because like if we're to look at it as it is now, they've absolutely every chance of surprising a few. Right. So end of the year, really. We will, I suppose, run through a few things. I'll ask you a few questions in terms of just fun questions. So one,
cool,
highlight of the year. One moment, I don't know, I suppose one iconic scenario from the year that you remember.
I would have to say, just because it's I think someone asked me a very similar question and this was my answer, and I haven't seen anything that has made me change my mind, but I would have to say Keith Earl's try against England in the Six Nations last year under closed doors or behind closed doors, or it was that little strike play where they went over the top and Jack Conan just tipped it down, just about got to the ball, even though Tom Curry read it, but Jack Conan must have some mutant hands because he just tipped the ball to Keith Earls. The gap was there. Keith Earls, Johnny May turned his hips. I'm not a big Johnny May fan, first of all, but
I don't. Because
he's just scored. He's broken my heart so many times.
Oh, he's a brilliant player, but I just think if you're not an English fan, you're not going to lean naturally liking him.
Yeah, that's why, and that's what fuels my that's what fuels my distaste of him, is because he always seems to score against us in the most like flamboyant of ways. But anyway, like Johnny May was cutting across just completely overcooked his line. Keith Earl stepped back inside and just dove in the corner. And I think, like, even since learning about his struggles that he'd been having for years,
he's such a lovely character. Such a lovely.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that try and that achievement, that he can still do it at that level against one of the best teams in the world internationally, was just
and
God,
the
you know
team,
what?
no rivalry.
Yeah, he'll be watching that try for the rest of his life. He'll be showing it anyway, whether he likes it or not. But no, that was incredible.
Yeah.
What about you? If you had to pick one,
that's a good pick. No. I asked the questions then.
Okay, that's fair.
No, highlight of the year. My God, I probably have a strange one for you, to be honest, and it's not necessarily on the field. It was more. This is going to sound strange, but I liked Barry Murphy's tribute to Axel Foley.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah.
That to me, I don't know why, but I love that moment. And I couldn't even well, of course I could tell you why. It's just what he means to us. But I just thought the actual what it was actually. It was so long since I think people, not that he'll ever be forgotten and shouldn't be,
Of course.
but time moves on, and everyone's like mind is on different things. COVID, then we had sports, and then everything that came with the Autumn Nation series, and then just to see that performed before a game, and to see everyone all of a sudden like love and fall in love with rugby, and people like him, iconic characters, or just good humans. I thought that was absolutely brilliant. And I actually, funnily enough, I saw Barry Murphy about a week ago.
Oh yeah.
And I was talking to him about it. I don't know if he remembered. It was in a pub now, so but we were talking to. Well, I was talking to him briefly about it, and I was just like, I thought it was absolutely amazing. I think he almost, I don't know if he took me serious because I was actually that enthusiastic about it. He's like, no, there's something wrong with this guy.
Yeah. He's joking
about a song, but I was like, I don't know. No, it was nice. It was a really nice, I don't know, moment of just remembering someone and kind of galvanized Ireland before a game. And I don't know. That's probably my moment. Strange as it is, that's probably my highlight of the year. Yeah, rugby wise.
No, I agree with you, and I think it really shows for a lot of people who probably don't know a lot about rugby in general, or don't know a lot about rugby in Limerick, or the role rugby plays in Limerick. But I think like Axel Foley was a great example of the role rugby plays in Limerick society, and that song, I think, outlines that whole relationship and that whole culture very, very well. So yeah, geez, I'm actually annoyed I didn't think of that myself, but good choice, good pick.
Right, so this is the fun. Yeah, this is the one I want to hear the most, because I don't know why, it just intrigues me.
Okay,
I'll move on to player of the year afterwards. Give me a quick two answers to this. So I'm gonna give you coach of the year, and I'm gonna give you player of the year. Actually, do you know what? No, I'll give you coach of the year and give me team of the year first.
Team of the year, as in if I had to pick a team.
You can pick anyone, national, club,
national. Anyone. Okay. You didn't want me to name like 1 to 15 of just
no.
Yeah. No. Okay, I'll go coach of the year first. It's going to be really tricky. See, I'm so afraid of saying someone and then thinking of someone better.
So I'm kind of intrigued. Yeah, I have mine. Well, I have two, and they're close, but I have them in my head. So,
God, I really wish I got this in advance, because I wanted to.
Yeah, you'd want to actually delve into it.
Think about it, yeah. But God, coach of the year. I'm leaning towards Andy Friend, to be honest.
Oh, okay, that's a great one.
Was he your one?
No, I didn't think of it. Now I'm like, okay, that's a good pick. That is a very good pick.
I think so, because I really think even in the past couple of months alone, like when they were playing the Bulls, or who was it, and the Bulls coach stood up with the pre-game press conference instead, or pre-game interview, I should say, and he said like, oh, sure, the only players who play for Connacht are the guys who didn't get contracts with Munster or Leinster. And I think Andy Friend has done more than just turn that whole idea and perception on its head over the past couple of months. So
completely agree.
I think he really has done that and done it well, and really made Connacht. And I know Pat Lam deserves a lot of the kudos for making Connacht the team they are too, but I think Andy Friend has really kind of put the last nail in the coffin in any negative perceptions of Connacht to now. So I think nowadays there really are a team to be reckoned with. But yeah, God, I'm going to be annoyed now if I think of someone better later, but I'm happy with my answer. I think Andy Friend is it.
I'm playing a bit of a homer for mine, which is probably not really being expensive or thinking outside the box, but don't care. I have my choice. I'm tied here between Raj.
Of course.
Tied with Raj, and the one that many people probably wouldn't agree with me, but I'm just talking about a year now. I'm not saying this man will go on to be. I'm not saying to be a statue in the next 10 years. I'm saying this year, Andy Farrell.
Andy Farrell, yeah, I was kind of expecting that, to be honest, just because, like, he's proved a lot of people wrong.
Massively.
Proved a lot of people wrong, and
it's more. I think a lot of people expected us to improve defensively and become a lot more solid, but it's how expensive we've become, and the way we play it. It's one thing to beat New Zealand, which is amazing when it happens, and it's historic when it happens, and it's the days you live for as an Irish rugby fan. But the style that we beat them in, the manner, that to me, that performance alone would nearly win me, for me, coach of the year. Like, I thought it was absolutely unbelievable. Like, but I don't know. I don't know. Roger, I don't know. I can't decide. I actually pick a hand, Ben. That's the scenario we're in.
I know. I agree with you, and I think a lot of people kind of thought that when he took over from Joe Schmidt, that he would just be kind of like another Joe Schmidt, and Irish rugby probably won't change all that much.
I thought it was plugging a gap.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, people probably did. A lot of people did.
That's why I have him there, because and it's not a disrespectful way. It's I personally, for him, set the bar not too greatly high. So when he's kind of surpassed everything I've expected of him to do. Yeah, he's up there for me anyway. That's so but I do like your Andy Friend might actually be the winner now. Yeah. That might take. Okay, so the player of the year.
Player of the year, team of the year, was it?
Player
of the year. Good question. I'm kind of stuck between two.
I know one of them anyway.
Is Marcus Smith?
No, Sexton.
Oh, gee, I know. Okay, probably not Sexton there, to be honest. I know. Listen, do you know what? I'm very harsh on Johnny Sexton, but
I'm only messing.
He's Johnny has had his time in the limelight. I think there's a lot to be said for the likes of Marcus Smith, and there's a lot to be said for the likes of Louis Rees-Zammit.
It's a new era. So
it is. It's a new era. Yeah, absolutely. Like LRZ has made a big dent in both international rugby and like getting his first Lions call up and all of the above. But I think Marcus Smith has really changed the fabric of the game of Northern Hemisphere rugby at this stage. You know, I think he's really made it. And that's not to say that other players haven't reached similar heights in their own regards, but I think just Marcus Smith he's something else. Like we're going to be watching and studying that guy for a very long time, for years to come. So I'm just going to nail my colours to the mast early and give him my player of the year.
I like that shout. I don't know who mine. Like, I'm actually tempted to go again with two Irish players again, but I mean, one I don't think has had maybe not the longevity, like in terms of within the year. Like, he had a stunning few months. I don't know if the year now he'd take it. And then the other one, of course, I'm going for Big Boy. I'm going for my man. I'm going for Tadhg Furlong. I honestly think he's like a ballerina that has just basically, I don't know, indulged on too much Weetabix and just has become that size, and he's just his feed and everything. I just think he raises the bar for other Irish players, and the performance levels that he sets, I think, has a knock-on effect on everybody in that squad. But maybe I'm just being too much of a homer. Maybe I need to watch more, I don't know, foreign rugby.
I know.
Definitely in with a shout, like, personally.
Yeah. Oh, he's the Rolls Royce of front rows, really, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's just he does, like you said, he sets the standard.
Because I want to hear what you have to say about this. Am I just being disgracefully biased here, or could you mention Caelan Doris? That's what I'm thinking. I don't think he's had the full year. I think it was more the Nation Series.
Yeah.
That's too much of a. It's too small of a sample size.
Exactly.
So,
and not to be.
Go on.
Yeah, not to be taken anything away from Caelan Doris, but like, there's been a lot of great performances. Like, he's gotten the nod recently in the green shirt for the Nation Series, but like, Gavin Coombs has really turned heads.
Do you know what?
So has Will Connors.
You're spot on.
Completely.
I neglected to mention Coombs there.
Coombs,
yeah.
But then again, it's hard to skim over the likes of DuPont. It's hard to skim over the likes of Intimac and
yeah.
That's the thing. Like
breakaway just for the breakaway against New Zealand. Probably just for that
alone. Yeah. But then again, there's no wrong answer. But my God, we could be here. If you said name your top 10, then we'd be here another hour, I'd say. But but yeah, my God.
Okay, so one more. We'll go one more, and it's just a basic one. We'll go for the double. We've done this before, but we'll just get a final answer before we wrap up the breakdown for 2021. URC champions and Heineken Cup. Well, Champions Cup champions.
URC, anyway. I'll start with the URC. I'd be tempted to go for a dark horse a little bit, but
would you consider Connacht the dark horse anymore? Probably not, because they're actually that good.
No, I would say I would. They're moving into the contender category, absolutely. But you know what? I wouldn't put it past the likes of Glasgow. Do you know what? And even
really,
yeah, I really think so. I think they could grind it out. Glasgow, or I would have said Leinster now. Leinster probably could get the job done, but
no, you kind of cut me off with that one. Not have thought you would have said that, but yeah.
I just think like Glasgow, even Ospreys, like I just feel like they're really, they're really picking teams apart really well. I just feel like and URC, like leagues like that they really are a marathon. They're not a sprint, and like past success from those teams has really come down to that, managing players and winning the games you can win and taking your points. And
you know what? That could be a very interesting pick for one factor, COVID.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
It could really favorites, whatever way you want to say, will be depleted at stages. So as will Glasgow, don't get me wrong, but it suits a smaller team to have both teams depleted.
Yeah,
it does
exactly.
So
it does, definitely.
That's a good shout. I like it. And you're obviously not deviating from your Champions Cup shout, are you?
It's tough. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Do you know what? I could say Ulster could make a break for it. I do think Harlequins, if I had to pick one, I'd say Harlequins, but I do think Ulster have a good chance. Like La Rochelle have a good chance. Could be Toulouse. I don't mean to be giving you loads of answers as well, but like, I think especially since last weekend
that are in the competition.
All of them, yeah, exactly. They could all win, but especially like you said with COVID, like you just don't know. You just don't know. But I would love to see Harlequins with it. I think they're good enough to do it. I'd love to see if how they played the game or how they won the Premiership last year can transfer over to European level. And you could make the argument that what Toulouse were doing last year wasn't a million miles away from how Harlequins like to play rugby. So, you could see it. You could see a Harlequins Toulouse final. You never know.
Yeah. Okay, well, there we have it.
There we go.
Yeah, that wraps up the breakdown for 2021. We will be back for 2022. Do not fear. Don't miss us too badly. We will return after Christmas. From all of us here, especially me, Mark Riley, and Ben, thank you so much for tuning in the past few weeks. Be nothing without our viewers, and it's a really, really enjoyable podcast to do, and we appreciate all of you. And we all wish you from Sporting Limerick the happiest of Christmas, and we'll see you in 2022.
Preview.